All right, now we go on to the next question. Reach into the old jar, shove my hand in there yet again, try to pull out something, one question at a time, not get my hand jammed in there. All right, this question says, can Bitcoin be hacked? Technically, no, and I'll say why that is. Now, some people have heard about hacks with crypto, but in the past, most hacks are exchanges, not the network. Bitcoin went down once in its entire history in its first year, but it's never gone down ever since. Other networks like Litecoin have never gone down, but these are like rock solid networks that have 10 plus years of a track record, which is a huge amount of time in the cryptocurrency space. So Bitcoin, I know it's a Bitcoin Main Street, but there are other ones that have been out there for a long while. Doge is another one. They have the track record, but Bitcoin is bigger. It's harder to hack. It's not, to hack Bitcoin is really what they call a 51% attack. What that means is you'd have to have control of the majority of the network, 51%. 51% is over half. That's why they call it a 51% attack. You'd have to have control of 51% of the miners to make a significant change and vote on it and to pass it to change the network. And then what would happen is that everybody else that would realize that it was hacked in a 51% attack, they'd fork. They would change the blockchain and say, we're not following whatever, like Jeff's team just bought 51% of the network and they're driving Bitcoins in this direction. So we're going to say, we're going to go back 2 blocks and we're going to fork to this other direction and we're going to let them do whatever they do. That's called a hard fork. That's happened in the past with some other Bitcoin spin-offs like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. All those were forks in the road of Bitcoin, and they just took things in different directions as far as block size, speed, settlement rate. That just different tweaks. But BTC is Bitcoin, and that's the majority of what exchanges recognize Bitcoin. That's what's recognized as the true Bitcoin across the planet. So as far as hacking Bitcoin, there are too many computers around. There's too decentralized. It would be nearly impossible to get 51% of the network. If you manage to build a twice the size of the network and then some, it would cost you millions and millions of dollars to do that. And like I said, in about 15, 20 minutes, probably before the next 2 blocks get built, they would say, we're not doing this, we're going to fork, and you'd only get 2 blocks. So that's if that. So it's just not worth it. So the Bitcoin won't be hacked. The hack vector is really the exchanges, and those are your susceptibilities of like the third parties that you use to interact with the Bitcoin blockchain. If you're transacting right with the Bitcoin blockchain or just going right, just sending and receiving all your Bitcoin, that's not going to get hacked. The other hacks that happen, sometimes wallets have been hacked. That's why I recommend using multiple sources of wallets. You can generate your own with a paper wallet. You can use respected wallets out there, and I don't want to drop names because I'm sure I'll miss one. But there have been wallets in the past that have been hacked, and people have lost their wealth, mostly for software or hot wallets. I will mention that I know Atomic Wallet had an issue a couple years ago. There's been some rumors of other wallets getting hacked. That's why I try to stick with just a few that I've used over the years. Again, don't want to drop too many names because I'm probably going to drop something out. I do like Ballet. I do like Trust Wallet. I do like Exodus. But there's so many more. There's Blue Wallet. I can't even think of all the ones that are out there. Every time I go out, there's more wallets that are out there. Some of them have segregated witness, which is like you need, or multi-sig. SegWit is a different thing. So I meant to say multi-sig, which is multiple people have to sign off on a transaction, so that's another level of security. That means if you mess something up, and there's 3 signers in your account. Say you're running a business, and you've got the president, the vice president, and the treasurer of the business. 2 of the 3 have to sign off on all transactions. So one of them can go on vacation, the other 2 can sign, but no one person can spend without knowledge of at least one other person. That's a benefit for that. That really gets into more advanced security. That'll be a more advanced topic, but Bitcoin itself cannot really be hacked. It really isn't going to happen. What happens more are wallets and exchanges. So that's what you need to be cautious about, and that's what we preach good security on that. Like Have your security words, have your private keys, so that if ever a wallet goes down or something happens and you're using multiple wallets, you can restore it somewhere else and have more peace of mind. Great question. We'll move on to the next one.